Good afternoon and welcome to the Pervasive Media Studio online lunchtime talk. These are live every Friday at 1 p.m, beaming out live onto your smartphones, laptops, iPads and living room televisions. My name's Luke and I'm the Pervasive Media Studio producer. These talks are a chance for us to throw open the digital doors of the Pervasive Media Studio and for you to hear more from people who are part of our community or who are working on things that excite us. And especially a big welcome to any of you out there who are new to the studio, for whom this might be the first time you'll be engaging with what we do. For all those newcomers, here's a little bit about what we do. The studio is a diverse and collaborative community exploring creativity and technology with everything from comedy to coding and product development to performance art. We're a partnership between Watershed, University of West England and University of Bristol, and we're a home for early ideas and companies, a meeting place for both of the creative and commercial industries. We offer studio space, desk space, meeting rooms, events, and opportunities all for free. And we make a safe place for artists, creatives, and companies to take risks in their practice and make time for collaboration. Today's speaker is Lily Green, who was going to be joined by collaborator Tim Kinberg, who is unable to join us today. Lily is going to hold the fort admirably on her own, and she is an artist and company director and also a studio resident. In her work, she combines workshops, books, and podcasts to co-produce multimedia literature and events with frequently underrepresented voices. There's a Q&A at the end of the talk, with the talk running around 30 to 35 minutes. If you want to ask any questions, just pop them in the chat window and I'll pick them out as we go. Please do remember you'll need to be signed into a Google account to post in the chat window. Quick trigger warning, there will be some references to some of the current events in America in Minneapolis, New York, Ohio, and Louisville, and these may be triggering for people of colour. There won't be any images of any of those events shown, but Lily will discuss them in her talk. As always, a captioned and recorded version of this talk will be available as soon as the talk is finished on this same link. Next week's talk is by Control Shift and is called Rethinking Our Relationships with Technology. Control Shift is an arts program exploring how we might consider the way we connect with technology. In the talk, Control Shift curators Becca Rose, Martha King, and Rod Dickinson will discuss core ideas behind Control Shift and introduce you to some of the artists involved, including Benjamin Redgrove, Arjen Harrison-Mann, and Wistelitz. You can get news on all our future talks by following us on @PMStudioUK on Twitter or Pervasive Media Studio on Instagram or subscribing to our newsletter on our website. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up. The more subscribers we get and the more likes we get, the more we can share stories like this. Please do share the link as we watch. It's live and you can share it on all your social media channels and bring more people in to hear what Lily's got to say. If you've got an idea for your own lunchtime talk, drop us a line because we want to hear from more people who want to talk about intersections of creativity and technology. For now, I'm going to hand you over to Lily.
Cool. Thank you, Luke. Hello, Internet. How are you today? I'm Lily Green, and I'm very excited to be beaming out to you, giving you this talk. I heard it through the Grapevine, where I'll be talking a bit about Grapevine, a new venture I started with fellow PM Studio resident Tim Kinberg. We'll tell you a little bit how it works, a little bit about how it came about, why we're doing it, and also what we've been up to, and very importantly, how you can get involved. So let's begin. So I'm going to begin by introducing the two of us. So, hello. Tim Kinberg is the technical director. He is a software engineer and works on various projects to help people act collectively, especially when it comes to furthering social justice and sustainability. And I'm just going to show you a screenshot from his company, Matter2 Media. And you should check it out. There's loads of really amazing initiatives and projects that he has worked on in the past and in the present. I'm Lily Green, and I'm the creative director of Grapevine, and I'm also the creative director of No Bindings. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. So I'm a bit of a creative entrepreneur and a multimedia artist. As Luke said, I use printmaking and bookcraft and audio in my work. And then with those skills, I've developed this micro publisher, No Bindings, which essentially blends print, audio, and community with a view to creating printed and audible products that are all about collective expression. So groups of people coming together to make work and finding things to say through different channels, whether that's through speaking it and having it recorded, or writing and drawing. So a bit about Grapevine. Essentially, it tags printed or 2D images. So that could be something painted or something written down. And it can tag those images with digital audio. And then you can use apps that a lot of people have in their pockets to unlock it. So shall we do a demo? So this is a little video that Tim Kimberg made for this presentation today. So Martin, cue the video.
So I've received a postcard. It's a Grapevine Nights postcard, and I'm going to find out what the audio is that's tagged to this postcard. So I'll take a picture and send it to Grapevine. Let's see what happens. It's having a little think about this. Let's have a look at the photo you sent. It's a match, Grapevine Nights. So it's recognised that image. It's going to send me the first instalment of the content. It says there's 3 more pieces of content left, but let's have a listen to this one.
I wanted to actually get a bit serious and tell a story. A personal story. As I mentioned earlier, I do have depression, anxiety. I actually did not mention that earlier. Well, surprise. So I do.
And that was the first few seconds of Pravanya Pillay, who was at our very first Grapevine Nights and also gave a recent talk, Pervasive Media Studio talk.
Great, so that's a little insight for you as to how simple it is to use Grapevine and the fact that it can work on a very widespread app like WhatsApp. So we'll sort of show you this through the talk, but the main sort of impetus for us, which I hope will demonstrate through the reasons why we started Grapevine and the kind of projects that we're doing at the moment, is kind of to work with these 2 groups of people. So storytellers who are really frustrated, who are amazing at telling stories, but they might not be the kind of things that are heard very often or are on trend at the moment. Or perhaps they're stories that are told in languages that other people don't understand. And so they're trying to get their stories to audiences, but there are not very many channels for them to do so because of one reason or another. Then there's the other group, the unsatisfied listeners who are tired of hearing the same narratives over and over again and really want to challenge themselves and enrich their lives with other people's perspectives, experiences, and voices, as well as those who are desperately searching for material in languages that they want to listen to, other languages that they speak, but also stories that are coming from their local area as well. So there are lots of different reasons why you might fit into one of those 2 groups, and Grapevine is here for you. So how did Grapevine come about? So I'm going to try a little experiment with the audience, even though I can't see you. So hands up if you have WhatsApp. Oh, there's my hand. Hands up if you have Telegram. Hands up if you have Signal. Or hands up if you have Facebook Messenger. I'm going to make a big assumption that quite a few of you raised a hand, or raised a hand in your mind because you didn't want to raise your hand to a screen and feel silly. But I think the point of that exercise is to kind of show that we've removed a barrier by not creating a new app, by making sure that Grapevine works on these platforms. And the reason we decided to do that came from a couple of projects that I was working on as No Bindings. So one of them was a project called Radio Book Rwanda. I was collaborating with two publishers in East Africa, Huza Press in Kigali and Kwani in Nairobi. I went out to Kigali for 3 weeks to meet the team, get to know each other, get to know the scene for literature in the city as well. There was a lot on offer, and also what I learned is that radio is huge, that the literacy rate for Kinyarwanda is very, very, very high. However, the literacy rate for English was much lower. So when it came to publishing stories, a lot of writers naturally swing towards English because that's kind of the language of writing. But it does mean that a lot of stories are kind of diverted away from a Kinyarwanda speaking and reading audience. On top of that, you have distribution. In terms of on-demand, mobile is the biggest place to find on-demand content. Not so much through podcasting platforms, but through WhatsApp, through sharing and recommending videos and resources to each other on personal conversation, one-to-one interactions. So seeing that, a thought started to develop that maybe we could distribute the audio components of Radio Book Rwanda through WhatsApp. And we could link it back to the printed books that we were making by having the images be recognized through an image recognition system. On the other side of the pond, quite literally, back in the UK, I was working on a project called Here We Grow. Now that was a production that explored how Bristol is and isn't an age-friendly city. And looking at that and working with the contributors, there was a huge range of people in terms of their digital literacy. So some of the older adults I was working with on internet every day, they knew exactly how to get what they needed and had a lot of tech skills. On the other end of the scale, there are people who still only communicate by letter or phone. So I was trying to think of a way that all those people could get the content from the printed pamphlet for themselves. And so I applied for a research and development bursary from the Network for Creative Enterprise, which was a program that ran in the southwest of the UK for 3 years. And with that bursary, I was able to hire Tim as a creative technologist to help me think of a number of ways in which I could solve the problem of the printed work that I make and the audio that I make feeling more connected and actually being access points for each other. And within that research, we came up with a number of options. We had one where you just simply call a number and listen to it, and then you would hear the digital audio. And with Here We Grow, that worked really well because it was personal stories being shared by people who had a lot of lived experience, and hearing them talk intimately into your ear was really, really nice. And another method that we really liked was one that used this idea of taking a photograph, partly because it built on the desire to kind of capture a moment in time and honor something that you find really beautiful or stunning or you want to keep as a memory. So kind of the, I guess, Instagram culture, but more on a person-to-person sharing. And we wanted to do that because we had a couple of rules in place. One, that we didn't want to create a new app, and two, that we didn't want to use QR codes. QR codes, we felt, drew the attention away to a function that was kind of attached to the picture as opposed to the picture being the portal itself. And after a while, we did a couple of experiments and did another research experiment with some money from the Brigstow Institute at the University of Bristol, where we were able to showcase a prototype version of the image to audio through WhatsApp at a festival, Africa Writes Bristol. And at that point, we started thinking, hang on, we're both really committed to this. We both kind of have ideals, both in our work, of using software or using media as a way to include people. And so maybe we can put these things together and create a company. So that's what we decided to do. And driving, I guess, Grapevine is a lot of things. Driving Grapevine for Tim and I is the excitement of going from print to audio. The joy of holding something in your hand, but also being able to take a moment to close your eyes and listen to something. But it's not just anything. And I think for both of us, inclusion is such an important driving force behind why we are using our time, investing our money to make this work. I think inclusion sounds like a buzzword, but I think it is a very real necessity. And I think considering what has been going on in the world, even in just the past few days, past few weeks this year, with the murder of Black people in the US, and also the kind of systemic racism that we have going on in the UK as well, including stories from people that you don't know and hearing those stories is so important. And I just want to take this moment to use this platform to share some resources with you, because it's time that, you know, we take some action. So in the chat, I believe Luke is going to share some links. So some of them are handles to educators online who have amazing programs where you can learn about what white supremacy is, how it works, what white privilege is, because it's not for Black, Indigenous, people of colour to explain that to you. And you can also find links to some amazing legal programs that are helping to get justice for Breonna Taylor, for George Floyd, for Ahmaud Arbery. Is it Arbery? Yeah. And also I put a link to the Ronnie Mead Trust, which is a fantastic organisation that does huge studies and research into inequality, race inequality in the UK. And I'm putting that out there because I have this platform, and I think it's really important to take the opportunity to do that. So thank you for listening to me, and I'm going to continue with my talk. So inclusion, it's a necessity. And that's kind of why we're using our skills, software, print, audio, in this way. So when we think about storytelling as an industry, so an exchange of money for creative works, I think there are aspects of it that feel exclusive. So on the one hand, you have print. You want to print a novel, a memoir of experience, let's say. But print is expensive, and it can seem very exclusive, the channels to get to that point where you are actually being published and sold in a bookshop. And then on the other end of the scale, you have online self-publishing, which can seem like this huge void of just choice, and there's so much going on. You know, how do you find what you're looking for? Especially when a lot of the most original stuff is happening in smaller communities and smaller spaces, or even just in people's homes. And so what we want to do with Grapevine is kind of find a middle ground. So the fact that you can attach larger digital content to images means that you can use cheaper printing methods like postcards or posters to actually be your new book covers for much longer content. And you don't have to, necessarily go viral to have your story be appreciated within a digital network. You can pass your story on from person to person. So thinking about that, how has Grapevine been used so far? So we've had quite a few different projects, which I'm really excited to share with you. So the first is Radio Rwanda. We did actually connect the content, the digital audio, the podcasts and the dramatized narrations of those short stories from that series to the covers of the book. And we were able to share that connection with over 100 people who came through to see the Grapevine prototype at Simple Things Festival in October last year. The next step was to link up a production that I've been working on with Norwest Media Centre. So that is the Weekend Mate Chat Show, and that involves an audio series where people living in the neighbourhood of Norwest talk about how they can get beyond the housing crisis in a series of creative ways using local knowledge. And a series of postcards was made for that show. And so those two were linked. So you could take a photo of a postcard or art print and receive a trailer for the podcast. We've also been funded, whoop whoop, by the Brigstow Institute at the University of Bristol to work with Professor Madhu Krishnan and Dr. Edward King on a project where we're seeing how artists want to use Grapevine in 3 different locations to solve problems specific to those places. So we've been working with, we've done a focus group with artists in Bristol. We've done another in Sao Paulo to explore how Grapevine can be used in comic culture, which is often supported by online communities. And we've also got a workshop coming up in Yaoundé in Cameroon, where writers are telling stories in a range of languages. They're telling them in English, French, but also Pidgin and Camfranglais. However, for those last two, there isn't necessarily a standard way of publishing those languages in print. So this could be a way in which stories can be told in the way the writer wants to, without it necessarily having to go through that process of getting a standard way of editing. So if you've ever edited a book, you use this manual, it's about this thick, and it tells you all the different standardized ways of how to actually print something in English. And it takes a long time for something like that to get developed. On top of that, we've also been running our own little thing called Grapevine Nights. So here's a little screenshot from Grapevine Nights. So this is a scratch night for wordsmiths. Now we say wordsmiths because people use words in all different kinds of genres and mediums, whether you're a songwriter, stand-up comedian, poet, if you use text in your art, that kind of thing. And this was a great evening where we had supporters of the 4 artists in the call with us, and they each performed a short set of about 10 minutes of some new work that they were working on. What we then did is, as you could see from that demo video at the beginning, we then captured the performances and sent out postcards to everyone who donated to the Artist Fund that evening. And they all received a copy of that postcard and were able to then relive the moments from that night. And the last project that we're doing, which is forthcoming, is with Kitchen Circus, and that's run by the Norwest Media Centre. And we'll be working with 3 families from different areas in Bristol: Barton Hill, Norwest and Easton. And we're going to be working with them to get them to use the Grapevine technology in any way they can. So if they want to send voice enriched pictures to each other or to their networks, then they can do so. And so what features are we really excited about? So I'm going to take the plunge because I'm not normally the one who talks about the tech when it comes to Grapevine, but I'm going to do it now. So with Grapevine, the thing we're excited about is the fact that we have created core software that works for a range of messaging apps. And for us, that's the key. Grapevine isn't, in theory, fixed to one messaging platform. So as the way we message changes, we suspect that, we hope that Grapevine will also adapt with it. But the principles of Grapevine will stay the same. At the moment, to recognize images, we use something called feature detection. So it might pick up that circle or that lighter triangle. However, this doesn't scale super well. And as such, we're going to try and integrate machine learning into how we do image recognition to make it scale better. We're also working on a very cool tool, which we nickname the Maker tool. So at the moment, people who have images and audio send it to us and we put it into the system and it connects. So what we've been working on is an interface where you can draw a picture, upload that picture in one side of the Maker tool. You can tell a story, record it, and upload it into the other side of the Maker tool, and those two things will then be connected. And so that will allow for multimedia artists or just writers or illustrators to then distribute their own Grapevineable content. We also are working on a feature that captures information around how the stories are being shared so that it can benefit the artists who decide to, or storytellers who decide to upload their work. So if you had, knowing that your story had been shared time and time again, thousands of times by thousands of people, could really help you prove and enter into, get a foot in the door in those more mainstream industries. Turn around and say, look, actually, what I have to say is worth something. And that's something that we're working on. So that's Grapevine. I know there's probably still a lot of questions out there, but that is fine. We're still working on it. But what I want to tell you now is the different ways you can get involved. We definitely want to create Grapevine in a process of constantly having people contribute to the things we develop, and we are changing everything every time we get more feedback from people. So the first step is Grapevine Nights. If you know someone or you yourself create work with words and would like to perform at our next live event in June, then please get in touch. Our emails will be at the end, and there's also a registration form which will link in the chat for that. So you can register to perform at one of our nights. Next, we are seeking our first 10 trailblazers. So these are, if you think that you've got an idea or a piece of work that you'd like to Grapevine, we want to hear from you. We want you to get in touch. We want you to tell us exactly how you want to use Grapevine. We want you to be ambitious. We want you to break the tech. We really want you to come in and shake it up a bit. And yeah, help us develop it to be the best it can be. So please do get involved. And finally, if you just want to test out how it works, some of you have already done this, you can complete a short survey for us about generally how you gather stories or how you get your entertainment, which is really helpful to us. And then in exchange, we will send you a free Grapevine Nights postcard, and your doorstep might look as nice as this. So please do get get in touch and do the survey. And yeah, we'll send you one of these and you can test out Grapevine for yourself. So in terms of, I just want to reiterate kind of why we're doing this. So yes, it's fun to use image recognition tech. Yes, it's a thrill to, and it's kind of magical to do this on WhatsApp or something you use every day suddenly becomes a tool to access, you know, creativity. But it's also about being heard. When you think about those two groups, it's the frustration of not being heard, and it's the frustration of not hearing what you want to hear. And so we're trying to address that with Grapevine, and I'm sure we'll learn some really important lessons along the way, and it's definitely not easy. But we really do hope that it will give people an opportunity to be heard. And that's everything I've got to say. This has been really surreal talking to myself, but thank you so much for sticking with it. I'm really looking forward to your questions. I'm going to try and answer them the best I can. So here is the link to our website, which is very skeletal, and also our email addresses if you want to get in touch. And yes, thank you so much for listening. As in real life cheerleaders.
Lily, thank you so much for that, and for, like as I said at the beginning, admirably stepping into the breach when Tim wasn't available to talk with you. I've got a couple of questions to kick us off. One of the things I wanted to ask is, how did yourself and Tim kind of find each other, and how does the collaboration work?
So both Tim and I are residents of the Pervasive Media Studio. So we had our, you know, customary awkward hellos whilst we made tea in the morning and kind of start to recognize someone. And then actually the first time we interacted, Tim actually contributed a piece to Here We Grow. So that was that production about age-friendly Bristol. And at that point, Tim had just turned 60, and the contributions were open to people 60 and over. And so he wrote a poem, The Leaving, which was really beautiful, about kind of what kind of world are we leaving to our children. And so that's actually how we first got involved, is not as Tim as the technologist, but Tim the writer. And then I think through getting to know him through that project, I then felt like I could approach him as a technologist to help me with the R&D. So yeah.
Great. I didn't know that our very own Tim Kinberg was a poet as well as a technologist. That's fantastic. One other question then is, if you were talking to someone who's just seeing the talk and is having those same questions about how they get into the world of publishing or digital technology or art, like where would you suggest people start? How do you get that kind of journey rolling?
Okay, wow, yeah, there's so many different ways, and I think it massively depends on what you want from it. So I will speak to what I know. So a lot of how I guess work with emerging writers and artists is through actually making books. And I find it such an empowering act. Like when I was working at Bristol University as a researcher on a creative writing project, I was developing workshops for kids where they had to make the book that they wrote the story in. And then they were photocopying that and being able to share that with their friends and family. And I think that is such an empowering thing to do, is to actually create something and not wait for someone to tell you that you're good enough. So yeah, I think zine making and zine culture is like really powerful. So zine is kind of like a small handmade book that you would distribute and copy yourself. And that kind of harks back to a lot of the things I studied at university around pamphlet distribution in medieval times. And I think it is just that you can do things. You don't have to wait for someone to tell you to do it. So I think that's really powerful, and I think a lot of people are putting stuff out there, making poetry videos, and putting them online. But there is something really empowering about sewing a set of pages together into a book. And yeah, so I think that's a really good way to start. You can follow writers who often put resources out there and give a leg up to other writers. Like Nikesh Shukla is amazing for that. He puts up a lot of resources, especially for young people of color who want to write and start putting their work out there. He has a lot of knowledge and wisdom to share with the world, so I would follow him. Yeah, and I think I'll stop there.
I think that was pretty good, to be honest. Well, the take home generally is like, don't wait to be asked, just get started, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Camille Aubrey has a question, and if anyone else has any questions for Lily, please do drop them into the chat. We've still got some time left. If you've got any questions about Grapevine or anything else that came up in the talk, we are here to answer the questions that you might have. Camille says, what would be an ideal long-term plan for Grapevine?
Ideal long-term plan. I think the long-term plan would be the maker tool, really. And to get that really robust so that anyone can just kind of get on there and do that. So we're definitely at the very beginning of that plan. But yeah, making it sustainable so that people can just control their images and the content that's going out on there. Like that, for me, that's kind of the goals there. And I guess I have also kind of like ideas that I'm really passionate about, kind of like, could you create a library out of a mural kind of thing, by having pictures on the wall, and each picture would then give you a different story, and so you don't necessarily need, like, if you're lacking in infrastructure for getting access to kind of physical storytelling experiences, then that at least is a stepping stone between. So there's things like that I really, really hope that, you know, some of these trailblazers that we've invited to contact us will you know, want to do. But yeah, I think the long-term plan is just to get it to a point where people can really play with it, and, you know, as many artists and using it. And yeah, I think the goal would be for someone to receive a story on one side of the world and send it to a relative on the other. Like, that is that's the thing.
Just a quick apology. I'm not sure if people can hear my son screaming in the background. If you watched the first talk, he made a great appearance in the intro. There is someone looking after him downstairs. He's not unattended and screaming. Jessica Cox has asked a question, which she did ask earlier. Sorry, Jessica, I missed that one. She says, could you tell us a little bit more about the technology behind Grapevine, particularly the visual recognition software?
I can try.
Tim is normally the creative technologist on the project, and Tim can't be here today, so the detail would normally be Tim's on this, right?
And it is something that I am learning more and more about.
Right.
You know, sometimes we get stuck in a rut where I'm often talking creative and he's often talking tech, and then we're both kind of talking inclusion. So trying to kind of bridge the gap a little bit. I don't actually think I can explain more about the tech. I'm really sorry.
Right, Lily, you've done very well, mate.
I know it's such a shame, but yeah. So what I do know is that it starts, as I explained earlier, it kind of started with this idea of trying to detect a feature, and so you sort of choose which feature you want the computer to detect. So say there's like a specifically distinctive pattern, then you choose that bit that you want it to recognize. And we had some problems with that initially, where we had two images with a brick texture, and the brick texture was being used as the feature that triggered the response. But so you would send a photo of this sort of brick texture from one image, and it would send you back the audio from the other image, and so that kind of became a bit of a problem. But I think that's now become finesse, so that you're not just looking at one feature, but you're kind of having like a safe, and you get the code, the 4 numbers. So if you can match up the like a number of features, then you know that it's that image. Tim's probably going to watch this back and go, but yes, I've actually my husband's actually a computer vision expert, so he could probably tell me more about it. But he says he doesn't know anything. But they have had some conversations, and that is something that I want to learn more about. But yeah, that's all I can do.
So it's a lot more complicated than a QR code, but visually
complicated. All I know that has been really hard work for Tim. He's been working hard on it. Yeah, especially to get it to scale. That's like a really big thing.
If anyone does want to get into really hard detail about some of the technology behind the Grapevine project, Tim's details have been flashed up and should be flashed up again at the end, and he's definitely happy to have a conversation with people.
Yeah.
How it works. I think that's everything for now, Lily. A massive thank you for taking time out today to talk to us about Grapevine. Round of applause for Lily in the chat if you can. It's a very quick emoticon. But if you want to, next week's talk is by Control Shift, and it's called Rethinking Our Relationships with Technology. Control Shift is an arts program exploring how we might reconsider the way we connect with technology. And in the talk, the curators Becca Rose, Martha King, and Ron Dickinson will discuss core ideas behind Control Shift and introduce you to some of the artists involved. You can get news on all of our future talks by following us on @PM Studio UK on Twitter, or Pervasive Media Studio on Instagram, or subscribing to our newsletter on our website, which goes out once a month. Don't forget, please do subscribe to this channel and give the video a thumbs up. The more subscribers we get, the more likes we get, the more we can share stories like this. And please do share the link now and and forever. It will be up and live from the minute the talk is finished. It will be available to share. If you have an idea for your own talk, if you're sitting at home in front of your laptop or your TV thinking there's something I want to talk about, a project I'm developing or some research I'm working on which sits in the kind of meeting places between creativity and technology, then do drop us a line. We like to kind of foreground the voices of our residents and people who are making things that we're interested in. So do drop us a line on Twitter, or head to the website and find our contact details there. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your sunny weekends, and we'll see you all again soon.